You saw the thumbnail, but I'll repeat the question just in case you missed it. Is the watch market going to collapse in 2022? In short, no, it's not. Now, if that's all you're interested in, you're welcome for a short video. You can move on. If you'd like to hear a little bit more about my theories on the watch market, or more accurately, the watch markets through 2022, I'll see you after the intro. Hi, welcome back to Not So Obvious Watches. I'm Pete McConville, and welcome back after a bit of break. I spent a little bit of time away from the channel. Nothing dramatic, no great burnout or anything. Just kind of life got in the way, and I decided to extend it a bit with a bit of a break away from the editing suite more than anything else. Anyway, I'm kind of glad I have that break because just before I went, I was kind of thinking about doing a video on prices and what's happening in the market. But then I was kind of worried maybe I was responding early to a blip. Now, a couple of weeks on, I'm pretty confident that there's a trend. One thing I would stress, though, is I think there are a lot of people talking about this, and they tend to ask that same question: what's happening to the market? And I'm uncomfortable with that question because it implies that there's a single watch market, that there's this one entity that sort of describes what's happening to all our prices. And I just don't think that's true. I think that there are many watch markets covering a wide range of different countries of origin and types and technologies and material and, price range and vintage versus new. And they're just, all of these things act quite independently of each other. But I do think you can make sense of the market by simplifying it a little bit and breaking it down into two broad categories of watch. On one hand, you've got the main category, the one that most of us play with, which is just watch enthusiast watches. And what I mean by that is people who buy a watch because they love watches and they want a watch and they want to wear it. And that's kind of, I'll call that the enthusiast market. At the other end, you've got the investment market, and that's primarily the money coming in there is primarily from people who could be buying Bitcoin, could be buying frozen orange juice futures, but for whatever reason just thought they'd invest it in watches now. But apart from that, they don't give a shit about watches. It's just a financial instrument. Those markets are very, very different with some but very limited overlap. In the investment one, you don't need me to tell you what watches this are. Steel Sports Rolexes, Patek 5711s, etc. Vacheron Steel overseas, APs, obviously, maybe a Langer Odysseus, a couple of other watches, but only a very small number. They're your investment pieces, your hype pieces. There's a whole bunch of words for it, but essentially they define the watch investment market. At the other end, you've got pretty much everything else. Pretty much everything else from a Seiko 5 to a Center Tourbillon Omega Constellation is just in that kind of general watch enthusiast space, being bought by people who just want to have a good watch. Those two markets are acting really differently from each other. I'll start with the watch enthusiast market. What's going on there? Nothing much. It's acting today pretty much like it was a couple of months ago, and it was acting pretty much like it was about a year ago. I think that there are some long-term trends happening in that space that have been playing out for about 2 years, and I can't see them going away. That price increase has been driven by a change of behavior from the suppliers, where they are producing less watches, they are controlling the distribution of those more carefully, they are stopping the leakage to the grey market, and at the same time, there's slightly more enthusiasts coming into the market. Combine those of a slight tightening of supply, a slight increase in demand, and you see this ever so gentle upwards pressure on the kinds of watches that you and I buy day in, day out. That's been going on for 2 years. It's going to keep going on. The money that's coming into that from enthusiasts is the money that we spend on ourselves to make ourselves feel good. That kind of small luxury money is one of the most resilient forms of income. It almost never, ever goes away, even during times of recession and depression. I don't think that no matter what happens in the economy, I don't think we're going to see dramatic shifts in that space. And I think what you're going to see is that kind of just general, everyday enthusiast watch continue the pattern that it's been on now. General, overall, slow but steady rise in price. Okay, what about the investment side? I think that's fundamentally different. That is being fueled by highly volatile investment money. That's money that's coming in from people that could just as easily spend it on any other commodity that caught their eye as they were walking down the street. And at times of uncertainty, which we have now, that money is leaving the market. And you see that almost from the moment that people about 7 or 8 weeks ago started talking about being concerned about inflation, being concerned about rising interest rates, being concerned about what was happening in housing markets, then the increase in the value of those hype watches stopped. Ever since then, those watches have kind of hovered, maybe fallen off a little bit. And I think that's going to be the trend. I think that new money coming into that market has largely dried up. Is there still money coming in? Yes, it's going to maintain the market where it is. Is there going to be a precipitous drop-off, a bubble burst, or a pop? I don't think so. This isn't like people who have been shorting or people who have been investing in the margins. No one's going to be getting margin calls saying, sell that watch now, get me my money, you bastard. I think the kind of money that's been coming into that market has been smaller, not heavily leveraged, and the kinds of people who have found themselves with a $30,000 Rolex that isn't increasing in value anymore, they're not going to feel compelled to sell. Instead, they're probably just going to hunker down, and you're going to get kind of a buyer and seller on strike. Neither the buyer's not willing to pay the price that the sellers want, the seller's not being willing or able to drop their price, and we're just going to see stasis for quite some time. That's not spectacular. What I just said is pretty dull and boring. What I just said is the enthusiast market is not really going to change. It's going to keep pottering along largely as it is. The investment side of the house is going to just drift, not increasing, maybe falling a little bit, and yeah, that's it. But as unexciting as it is, that's actually what I think is going to happen. What do you reckon? What do you think? I'm not a finance guy. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I'm open to your ideas, your thoughts about what's going to happen. Are you hanging on, thinking that, in a year's time, you reckon Rolexes will be back at retail or even at a discount? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Pete McConville. This has been Not So Obvious Watches. I will see you later. Bye.